Happy New Year! Welcome back to Jump Scare. My name is Betty.
And I'm Shad.
This week we're covering 1982's Deadly Games. This is an Arrow Video release.
Yep, we were able to get a screener of it. And it's celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. It was released in October of 1982.
There's some slight similarities, maybe two, to Scream, which is perfect because this is the month where Scream is going to be coming up. Scream 5 will be released. And we thought it was a good partner for this film. Now, there's not anyone really recognizable per se.
The most recognizable person in this is Steve Railsback, who you'd recognize from the Helter Skelter miniseries, the Life Force, the Tobe Hooper Life Force from the 1980s, and from the X-Files in the 90s. He played Dwayne Barry in a few episodes, and he's the most recognizable guy in the movie. The rest of them are all pretty much character actors who have done a lot of TV and small movies through there. You might recognize their faces, but you'd be hard-pressed to nail down exactly where they came from.
Now, let's give a synopsis. And when I say let's, I meant you, Shad.
Oh, I know.
Give a synopsis of this film.
This is a film where we start off with the killer playing a horror-themed board game. It's a very Universal monster-looking thing. You've got Dracula, the Mummy, the Wolfman, the Creature from the Black Lagoon. You've got all these on this board game, and he's rolling D&D dice. It's a very haphazard game here. To decide what he's going to do, and at the beginning you see it lands on Dracula. And from there we discover that the killer is terrorizing the town using this very unique horror board game, rolling dice and deciding who he's going to kill and how he's going to kill them. Then we meet our intrepid hero who sister gets killed at the very beginning of the movie, and she comes in to investigate and save the day, sort of.
Now, I'm going to go more into depth to the beginning of the film where the sister is alive. But before we do that, I just want to make it clear that this is the 1982 Deadly Games, not the 1989 Deadly Games. Which
or the other movie from 1982 called The Deadly Game.
Wow.
So there's a lot of very similar titled movies out there to this one. Look for the one with Steve Railsback.
This Deadly Games 1989 one is like a Christmas film, horror film. So interesting. I feel like maybe we had seen this movie, but there's so many Christmas horror films. I can't remember them all. Now, the sister in the beginning.
Oh, yes.
She arrives at her home and she is eating a cookie, and she on her couch. She then stops eating the cookie, decides she's going to go to the front door or the side door of her home.
Yeah, it's like the back balcony kind of door.
Yeah, where
like the deck.
Moonlight is like literally going straight towards the door. It's beautiful lighting.
Yeah.
And she decides that she's going to start caressing herself in the moonlight. And my thought was, what the fuck was in this cookie? And also, can I have some? Because she looked like she was having a good old time. Then she decides, you know what? What is better than eating a delicious cookie and then feeling yourself up in the moonlight is maybe we need to take some clothes off. Okay.
So she just decides to start stripping, like you do.
So she does that. And then there's a telephone call. She goes and she grabs the telephone. And behind her is a window that she can look out, to the outside of her home. And the telephone, she picks it up and it's, the breather, the creepy guy. And he's literally like telling her obscene things. And he's like saying that he sees her. She's looking around. And then my favorite part of the film, she looks down the road and there's a fucking random phone booth. Like a lit phone booth, okay?
Just in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Nowhere.
Dirt road is just this phone booth.
And a dirt road. I'm like, how did they get like the landline to have a fucking phone booth in the middle of nowhere? I don't know. It was very weird. And he's there like fully masked in his like killer wear.
Yeah, black ski mask, gloves. I got the super thick, heavy gloves, because he's going to murder somebody.
And then she starts screaming in disgust.
Oh, God. And then she gets another phone call. You think, oh, okay, it's the killer calling back. Nope, it's a friend this time. And she says, yeah, I just got this really weird, obscene phone call. But it was kind of a turn on for him to call me and talk to me dirty like that. Okay, then why did you get so mad?
She was like screaming like her lungs out. And she's like, she says, I think it's sexy being watched.
Then why were you so mad when you found out? Is it one of those things like, oh yeah, I want someone to watch me, but don't tell me you're watching me. Just watch me quietly.
And then she gets killed.
Yeah. But at the same time, even when we were watching it, I'm like, technically he didn't actually kill her. He just chased her into the house and she backed out of the window trying to get away from him and fell out. So yes, he kind of caused her death, but he didn't actually put hands on her and kill her.
He didn't. She died from her own stupidity. If there's a killer or someone chasing you, okay, and you're going to go to the attic or whatever, this is your house. You are very much aware where you are. Maybe don't stand in front of the fucking, cathedral glass pane fucking window. And then keep backing behind, up behind it. You think oh, I'm not going to fall out of this window. What was she thinking?
And this is one of the first things that when we saw this, we were like, oh, this is a little like Scream. The movie starts off with a woman home alone, someone calling her, and then someone comes in and kills her. And, the other thing, too, is when she's, the first thing in Scream, she says, oh, it's always some big-breasted girl running up the stairs when she should be running outside. Mm-hmm. First thing in this movie, she runs up the stairs and ends up falling out the window. So I was like, okay, this has got some Scream references in it right off the bat.
She wasn't that big-breasted, though. I mean, she had breasts. They were there. But they weren't that big.
Then we cut to, the police investigation is there, and her sister, Keegan, everyone calls her Keegan. Everyone knows who she is. Oh, my God, Keegan's in town. Keegan's here because she writes for a magazine. And she's apparently the only one in this town that has ever left and done anything with their life because they're all obsessed with her. All of her sister's friends, everyone is like, oh my God, it's Keegan. Keegan's here.
What's weird is, and they never said this in the movie, you would think she had plastic surgery, or maybe she was either very thin in school or on the heavy side, and she just grew up to look completely different than she did when she was younger. Because that's how much they made a point to reference how different she looked. No one recognized her. Oh my goodness, this is her. Wow. They were just so thrown off to the point where it just seemed did no one that was in the film realize that this is the person that was in the film? This is the lead of the film? Because everyone just acted like she wasn't there at all. In that scene where they're in the diner and the waitress comes up to her and takes her order and she doesn't, it's not only until she comes back and the other ladies are like, oh, we think that's Keegan. And then they're like, oh my goodness. Like, oh, it is you. Like, what? Like, what was going on there?
And there was a lot of like helmet hair in this movie too, where people had the heavy hairspray on, like spraying it down until it didn't hardly move. This must have been the early 80s style because, man, there were some rough looking hairstyles in this.
So, if you had seen enough 70s or 80s TV shows, some films, mostly TV shows, you would notice that there are two men in this film. One had blonde hair and the other one was brunette. And they were the best of friends. The brunette one, he was kind of on the weird side. He had like the Dr. Evil, like scar down his eye.
That's Steve Railsback.
And
he always plays the off guy in the movie. So immediately, like, when I first saw it, I thought, this is either going to be two things. Either he's the red herring. They want you to be like, this guy played Manson. Obviously, he's the fucking killer. Or they're going to be like, they want you to think that and be like, nope, it's going to be someone else. He's going to be the red herring.
So he's a film projectionist, and he, does it in this beautiful old theater.
Again, another theater themed movie.
Yeah, and he's very off-putting. Like, he has no social, he's like a sociopath. He has no connection to anyone with the exception of his bestie, who happens to be the sheriff.
Who's investigating the sister's murder. And they also were best friends, and they went to Vietnam together. They saved each other's lives. The whole 9 yards. And Railsback throughout this whole movie, I don't think there's a single scene where, even when he's in the movie theater sitting around, he constantly has a cigarette just dangling out of the corner of his mouth. It's he's one of those magical people that can just the cigarette kind of sticking on his lip, never actually holding it. It's just kind of hanging there throughout the entire film. I don't think there's a single scene, except for the very end, where he doesn't have a cigarette.
There's so much cigarette smoke in this movie, I thought at one point that there was actually smoke coming out of the TV.
Yeah, this is like almost like Nightmare Alley. That the Nightmare Alley movie, third billing should go to tobacco, because they smoke so much in that movie and everybody lights so many cigarettes. It's like, damn, did they get money from tobacco for this? Because they should have.
I'm like, look, I get it. It's a noir movie. It's set in the 40s. People smoked like a fucking shit, like so much back in the day. But oh my gosh, could we stop with the smoking already?
And this one was almost as bad. There was a lot of smoking in it. And it's just like, I get it. Excuse me. I get it. That happened a lot. But when they go out of their way to show it so much, it just gets weird, you know?
So the cop, who is married to one of the friends of the dead girl, because there's like a group of girls that were all, they're all friends. And now they've lost their friend who's been murdered. And Keegan... She actually is trying to find out like who murdered her sister.
Yeah, she's kind of there to be kind of looking around and see what's going on, ask the police. But they kind of dropped that early on. Like, she looks for a little bit, and then it's just kind of like, I guess I'll just hang out with everybody now.
Yeah, I just want to hang out with everybody. I'm just going to hang out in the house where my sister got murdered. That's cool. I'm just going to gather some stuff, and then I'll go back to the city and live my life in like a week or so. While I'm here, though, this cop over here is kind of good looking. I think he likes me a little bit. Oh, but he's married.
But we quickly find out it's okay. Him and the wife have an arrangement. He goes out and does whatever he wants to do, which apparently includes having sex with all of her friends. And
yeah, he's a douchebag.
Yeah, and no one seems to be too upset by this. And he brings his best friend along when he finally starts seeing Keegan, which there's a very creepy scene where Keegan's in the shower, comes out with a towel wrapped around her, and the cop is just creepily sitting on the doorstep outside her house because, like her sister, who liked to go outside naked, she also was like, I just got out of the shower, so I'm just going to go outside with a towel wrapped around me and stand on the deck in the moonlight. Apparently that ran in their jeans, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe they're fucking wolves or something.
I don't know. But yeah, so he's out there and just like, hey, what's going on? Then she does the typical, oh, God, I'm so ugly. I have no makeup and I haven't fixed my hair. He's like, it's okay. I don't mind. Oh, that's so nice of you. I'm glad you don't mind. But then she says, they start making out and she says, oh, I must be the strangest girl you've ever kissed. And he's like, well, yeah, you are. It's like, oh, okay. You really know how to woo the ladies, cop. I think it's one of those things where he's one of the only guys in this town that, looks halfway decent. So they're like, well, I guess everybody just gets their turn.
I'm sorry, but if I just came from, like, the big city, I don't live in this town anymore, like, I'm off living a life somewhere else, I'm not gonna just hop on the first fucking townie that I see. Like, what is her... And he's married, regardless. She doesn't even know what the situation is. She's already married, kissing this freaking married cop. And he's doing it. He should be trying to find out who killed my sister. Not trying to get his penis in between my freaking, my legs.
Now, there is a cool scene in this where the killer is watching her take a shower. And it's they do a very weird effect on this that I've never seen in any other movie. The killer is looking in the window at her, and they freeze the film on like a close-up of the killer in the ski mask, on his face. But in the reflection of his eye, you see her taking the shower.
Yeah, which was very odd.
I thought that the movie had stuck. I thought the screener we had frozen for a second. And then I realized, oh no, you can still see in his eyes she's taking the shower. It was an interesting effect, but it took you a minute to realize that the movie wasn't fucked up in some way. It was just like, oh, okay, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, it was definitely unique. I want to say that at some point it just became a weird threesome where the crazy projection guy, the cop, and Keegan, this, they just start hanging out together, and they have like
multiple dates where it's just all three of them.
They're playing. All the girls go to see him play football. And then they're playing football. All the guys are playing football. He's in there. And then they go on a threesome date and they're doing random stuff, right? They're shooting.
Yeah, they go and they do this. They go to the movies. They never have a date where it's just her and the cop. It's always the three of them just hanging out. So, but then she kind of will make out with the cop from time to time. And she even, she put her arm around Steve Railsback during the movie, was hanging on to him a little bit. So I thought they were kind of trying to imply okay, they're building up to something between all three of them here, but it never really pays off. But it definitely felt like they were building up to okay, she's going to date both these guys and they're going to be cool with it.
And let me tell you, I have never gone on a date where I go see the guy that I'm interested in play football, right? They're playing football. And then I leave with the guy and his friend. And then we go to the playground and we're drinking milk and eating sandwiches. Yeah. That was part of the date. I'm like, first of all, who takes milk to a playground? When you're not 5.
That's a terrible choice.
That is a terrible choice. There's sand everywhere. They were in the fucking sand, in the sand part. Why?
I couldn't even tell you. And there is someone else in this movie we forgot to mention. And you'd recognize him from being in a lot of 80s things. And that's the Dick Butkus was his name.
Oh, Dick Butkus, yes.
Yes. And besides having a terrible name, yeah, he was very recognizable from stuff in the 80s. A lot of it where he just played himself, Dick Butkus. Because he was a former college athlete turned sports commentator. And he did a lot of appearances in movies and TV shows just as himself. And he's one of the husbands of the people there. They're all playing the football game in the park. He didn't look that much like himself. He was definitely a younger version of him than I was used to seeing because he had a lot more hair in this one.
Yeah, and then after we see the cop basically have sex with almost all the friends with the exception of Dick Butkus' wife.
Yeah.
He has sex with all of them. They all die one way, shape, or form. The killer gets them.
Yeah, and he's using his board game, and when he rolls on the creature from the Black Lagoon, I love this scene, he jumps into the pool where the one is swimming, and he jumps in his full jeans, heavy sweater, gloves, ski mask, jumps in with a wire coat hanger, wraps it around her ankle, and then ties that off to the bottom of the pool to drown her. Then just kind of sits back on the edge of the pool and watches her drown. That's how she met her creature from the Black Lagoon death. Another one, he rolls the mummy, and there was a conversation earlier in the movie between the cop and the projectionist about the mummy always strangles people one-handed. And he's like, nah, you can't do that. You can't strangle somebody with one hand. Your thumb's just not strong enough. Then you see this killer try and strangle her with just the one hand.
But it doesn't work out. He has to go for the two hands.
Yeah, it doesn't work too well for him. He can't quite make it. But so right away you're like, which one of them is it going to be? It's going to be one of these two because they're trying the one-handed strangle. But
and then, after all that happens, then it's time for Keegan and the projectionist and the guy to... The cop. All to hang out with one another again. And this is when this is later on, they hang out in the movie theater. We had kind of mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
This is towards more in the end when they're hanging out in the movie theater all together. They're watching some freaking film. And then, I have to say, in all these films, I'm jealous. I wish I had awesome old movie, theater to chill out at. Because all these people are always chilling in the theater, and there's no one ever in these theaters. It is like 500 seats, and there's always 2 or 3 people in them.
It's just the 3 of them sitting in the balcony watching this movie. Which I get, he's the projectionist. He can let you in when it's closed and everything, but still.
But yeah, they could just hang out there and just have the best of times. And that's cool when you do have that projectionist friend. You had a friend that worked in the movie theater, and you... Yeah,
that was good times. It kind of sucked whenever he quit and had to start paying for movies again.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, you don't get that experience, but you do get that that's not a normal experience everyone gets to have, where they just hang out in amazing movie theaters like that, like those old timey ones. And but they do, and then shit goes awry.
Yeah, it's just a very the movie's over, and she says, okay, well, I'm going to head down to the car. How do I get there? I'm kind of lost. And he's like, oh, yeah, just go down the steps and go to the left. You'll be fine. I'll be down in just a second. Now, the projectionist guy's already left at this point because...
He went to go fix the projection. But wait, before we get into this part, I have to say, there was a weird part where they were, in the projection room or somewhere in there, and they were playing a game. And
they're playing the horror board game that's never named.
Yeah, and there's a weird song that's playing that we later find out the song's actually written by the guy that directed the film and wrote the film.
Yeah, Scott Mansfield, his name. He wrote the movie, directed it, and wrote this song for it. So he had a triple threat going on in this.
And the song, a part of the song says, I don't want you here. I don't want you here. No, I can't stand you near. Is part of the lyrics of the song, which I thought, that's weird. Because is that saying that to her? One of the guys does not want... I thought there was a whole thing where one of the guys was in love with the other guy.
Yeah, and he was going to be upset that she was there. Now, I forgot to mention too that before they're having this date at the movie theater, we've seen for a fact that it's the cop that commits at least one of the murders, because he picks up one of the friends that's been hanging around at a bar and heads back with her, heads back to his apartment with her, and she's like, oh, wow, we're going to go to your apartment this time? We never go to your apartment to have sex. It's like, no, come back to my place this time. But he's already at this point, snuck off and had sex with Keegan by himself, and he can't quite perform with her, which, that means it's going to be bad times for her, because he's a murderer, and he's embarrassed he couldn't perform, so she's definitely going to die. So we see that he's done this, and then he has a monologue later where he confesses to all the killings. He's just sitting by himself, and he confesses that, yep, I killed the girl at the beginning. I didn't mean to. I meant to just go in there and scare her. It was so exciting, and she just fell out the window. Then I just couldn't stop myself. I had to drown the other one. And
he got a hard-on for killing. And literally he says he was killing because he was bored.
Yeah, he was just bored in this town. And the one girl who at first survived was because he just couldn't strangle her one-handed. And yeah, it's very weird. And then, so you're like, okay, well, obviously he's doing it. The projectionist is going to come in at the end of the day and save her. Because as Keegan's walking down the hallway at the theater, you see, here comes the guy all dressed in black coming towards her. And you're like, oh shit, this is going to be This is going to be it. She's going to be killed by her cop boyfriend. So she takes off running into the theater, is running around trying to get away from the person trying to kill her. She finally manages to kill the masked murderer. And lo and behold, she pulls the mask off. Oh no, it's the cop. Surprise. We already knew all that.
Yeah, she thought it was Billy, the projectionist.
She was convinced it was going to be Billy, but then out of nowhere you hear Billy screaming, "You killed my best friend. You killed my best friend." And then in the craziest scene of the fucking movie, she looks up from the stage where she's at, where the screen is, at the front of the theater, and see, here comes Steve Railsback, just sliding down on a fucking rope, like screaming, and then just freeze frame, the end.
Yeah, so we don't know if he murdered her, she got away, like what the fuck. And did they or did not say that they were both, just like in Scream, it was both of them in the killings together?
Yes, because there was at one point that the cop was with her and something else was happening. So they were doing the killings together. They were doing this together.
And then it's just because they had PTSD from Vietnam. There was no crime in the small town, so he decided, I'm bored, nothing's ever happening here, so I'm just gonna start killing ladies.
Apparently so. It was very. I feel like they started off with making a slasher, and then they kind of went to make like a, Lifetime romance movie, and then threw in a little bit of slasher at the end, and then just kind of ended it.
Yeah, it was very strange.
It's very rare that the movie I'm like, oh shit, okay, that was it.
I don't know why someone would want to bring this movie back for people to see, because it's not much to see. The movie makes no sense whatsoever. It's all over the place. And
I guess just because you can look at it and be like, okay, this is a little bit, you can see some influences of Scream on it. And it's one of those ones that I don't think it's been released on anything other than probably VHS since the early 80s.
Because it should have just died as a VHS. They should have not resuscitated and made it in any other form, because it's that bad. It would have been cool if the fucking game if he was consistent with the game, if the kills actually all matched up to what was happening. There's no indication, no story, there's nothing about this game. We never know why. It's not a game he bought at the store. It's one that's made, so we don't know why he made the game. Did he make the game just to start killing people? Was this an inside joke between the two of them? Nothing. There's no explanation whatsoever.
Yeah, there's a lot of things brought up, but not a lot of things are followed through on in it. It's very strange. It looks good. They've done a great job of restoring it, but there's just not much to the movie. I can't even say it's that bad. It's just there's not much going on in it.
I thought it was very boring, and there were some weird choices that they made.
Oh, there's some odd choices in it, but I don't know.
Like when they're playing the board game, which is they're having the best of times. There's no dialogue, because they're all just laughing and being weird and just chuckling and slapping their fucking knees. Right? And then they're playing that weird fucking song with the weird lyrics. And then the camera is literally circling them over and over and over again as they're playing. And it's not up close shots. It's a wide shot of them playing the game. And the camera is just literally going around them multiple times. What the fuck, man? What was that about?
Yeah, there's some interesting choices in here. And there's some strange, the reason I thought maybe they were going to imply that the guys were involved with each other is because during the football scene where the wives are sitting around playing football, one of them says, why do they slap each other on the butt sometimes? That seems kind of gay to me. And the one says, oh, don't you know all men have latent homosexual tendencies, especially those that play sports? And she's like, really? And they're like, yeah, really. So I thought maybe they were going to go somewhere with that, but they just dropped that. They never brought it back up. I thought, if they had done that, I thought, wow, this is going to be a really, groundbreaking horror movie for the early 80s to have been the two killers are two gay guys who are in love with each other and are going around killing people. Thought that would have been an interesting twist, especially for an early 80s movie. Yeah. But no. I thought that's what I thought too when they started. I thought, oh, maybe this is why it hasn't been on video or anything for so long. it was an unpopular choice when it came out, and it's kind of vanished. But no, they didn't really go anywhere with it.
The deadly game here is you are playing Russian roulette. You're going to watch this movie, and then you're going to want to kill yourself. Because it's that terrible.
It's not that bad. It's just not that interesting. To me, there's a difference between a really terrible movie and a just not interesting one. This one's got some interesting things in it where it's like, okay, that was interesting. I've not seen that before, but there wasn't enough connecting everything. It seemed like just some random vignettes put together. But like I said, I can't say I hated it. I'm glad I saw it because it's something I can, chalk up and be like, okay, this is an interesting one, but it just didn't hold my attention that much.
You're much more forgiving. I give it one knife, and that's all the knives I'm gonna get. That's one knife too many. I wish I could give 0 knives, but like you said, there was slight interesting things. There's nothing like. As soon as I finished the movie, I immediately forgot what the movie was about because it was that boring.
I'm going to give it 2 knives just because, like I said, there were some interesting scenes for it. It's a little piece of forgotten horror history. It's
fine.
To me, I'm glad to see it. I probably won't see it again, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. We've seen way worse movies than this.
This is true. I also would like to thank Arrow Video for allowing us to view this beforehand, and we're very grateful. And like you said, I am happy that I was at least able to watch a forgotten horror film.
Yeah, because I had never heard of this before.
That may or may not have influenced a little bit of Scream, because there are some slight similarities.
Yeah.
With the 2 killers, with one being kind of a brunette and the other one a blonde.
This will be one of those things that it'll be good to later when someone's talking to you about Scream, you can bring this up and be like, hey, have you seen Deadly Games? That's another one that's very similar to Scream, Yeah. It's kind of one you can file away and keep in your mind for when you want to talk about movies that influence Scream.
Yeah, which it may or may not have. I've never seen anything saying that it has, but it's one of those things like, we don't know if maybe Kevin Williamson maybe had seen this film and then fucking 20 years later decided to write this movie and maybe took away some things that he did like or
remembered from it.
Yeah, that happens all the time. Like, things like that happen. So who knows? But yeah, 1 knife for me, 2 knives for Shad because he's awesome. And thank you so much for joining us. It's a new year, and we're looking forward to a new year of film, new and old. And we're going to be bringing in Carrie for some of our second servings. And she's going to sit in with us and give us her 2 cents on some of her favorite second servings. Because she likes really, really terrible movies. But she has a unique perspective on a lot of them. And she's like a fucking fountain of knowledge, like useless knowledge in those films. So thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned to the horror.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.